Stingray? Is that the Batmobile? Is that a Ferrari? Yeah, that's the 2015 Chevy Stingray. I'm here at Alan Wilczek's farm, taking it for a spin on the track, driving it on the road. I'll tell you what it's all about. I'm Tom Albrecht, and this is FL Detours. So this is the 2015 Corvette Stingray. It does a lot of neat things, but let's get the most important thing out of the way. It's fast. It's really, really, really fast. 455 horsepower and 460 pound-feet of torque from a 6.2-liter V8. Chevy. Doing it right, as always, when it comes to this kind of power. There's a lot of things different from the previous generation to this generation. The most noticeable one is the way it looks. I think this is the best looking Corvette ever. There have been some complaints about the taillights, there have been some complaints about some other things, maybe the angles are a little too sharp, whatever. Stop complaining. I completely disagree. I'm sure there's about 100 of you right now foaming at the mouth, ready to say, oh, GM recalls, GM recalls. Stop. It's time to let it go. Yes, they've done some things in the past that did not pan out so well for them when it came to quality. But you know what? They're not the only ones, and they're sure as hell not the last ones. Let them fix it, move on. Because when it comes to GM products, especially this Corvette, it's serious business. The quality is there. They paid attention to every detail. The engineers did not spare any expense into designing this car from the ground up into something that is a formidable piece of equipment, a machine, a tool, a utility of destruction of speed limits. It is fast as hell, 0 to 60, 3.8 seconds. It is loud as hell. When you get on the gas, oh yeah, that's not even as loud as it gets. It gets louder, trust me. I just can't do that in a residential neighborhood because I want to finish this review without getting arrested. Let's talk about technology. Magnetic ride control. It has heads-up display, which tells you your G-forces, tells you your speed, your RPMs, and you can actually change the way the diagram looks, which is really nifty. The cockpit is driver-oriented. It is basically designed for the driver to have all the information and anything he needs right within his reach at all times. All the displays are crisp. My only complaint is that when you go to touch things on the menu, you actually have to put some force behind it. The sound system is loud. The bass hits hard for all those people that want a good sound system in a convertible like this. Convertible top moves up and down very quickly. You can put it up or down at a traffic light and don't even have to worry about beating it. It'll always beat it, as long as you don't do it right before it turns green, obviously. Let's talk about some of the fun little settings this thing has. You can either go into eco mode, touring mode, sport mode, and track mode. Each of those things sets the car up a little bit differently. Touring mode obviously is a little less aggressive. The exhaust becomes quieter. Sport mode, the exhaust opens up immediately. Eco mode is to save fuel. Speaking of fuel economy, city you get about 17, highway is about 29. It's believable. That's coming from the 7-speed manual. It's also available in an 8-speed automatic. Their fuel economies are similar. The 7-speed manual is notchy. It is confidence-inspiring. When you put it into gear, you know you've put it into a gear. However, there is a learning curve, believe it or not, going from 4th gear to 5th and 6th. You know, most manual cars come with a 6-speed manual transmission these days. So when you go from 4th gear to 5th gear, it's pretty simple. Neutral position, as far as you can go, jam it up into 5th. 6th gear, jam it down into 6th. No problem. With 7 gears, caught me off guard twice. Going from 4th, I would move it over to the right thinking I was, I'm going into 6th gear. Nope, went straight to 7th. Car didn't bog too much. You'll get used to it after a while if you decide to buy this car, which I highly recommend if you're in the market for it. 5th gear, 6th gear feel normal. Going into 7th is kind of gummy. Not gonna lie. It doesn't feel confidence-inspiring. 7th gear is an overdrive gear. It's meant for fuel economy when you're on the highway, obviously. And it also does have cylinder deactivation when you want to save fuel. So it goes from an 8-cylinder to a 4-cylinder when you're just, cruising on the highway. Let's talk about packages. First and foremost, Z51 package. Dry sump, a bunch of other cool stuff. Do it. Get it. If you're in the market to get this car, the first thing you tell them, I want the Z51 package. You go to the dealership, you sit down with the dealer or the salesperson and be like, listen, all right, I want a Corvette Z51 package. Let's start there. Then we'll talk about the rest of it. Very important. It is worth every penny. It changes everything. The car is great without it, but it's at its prime with it. 3 LT package and 2 LT package, which are available in this car we have here. Leather wrapped, everything. Two-tone stitching, red stitching on the black leather, the red stitching on the black leather steering wheel, the red seats, which are comfortable, supportive. I wouldn't take it on a super long road trip, but everyone's different. They're comfortable. I'm not saying they're not. Rev match downshift. It's gimmicky for some. I like it. It's very accurate. It doesn't really interfere with my driving. It actually makes it easier. Another cool feature of the Corvette Stingray, which is an option, is called Performance Data Recorder, or PDR. There's a camera which records what you're doing as you're driving. If you are into going to track days, I think it's a very awesome feature which will help you improve your driving, because you can go over the data, you can go over, you know, where you turned in, you can check your apexes, you can check whatever you want to check. There's also a valet mode, which has recently come under fire as a violation of privacy. Basically, it data logs and records whoever's driving your car from the valet service. So hit the playback button and you'll see if they drove the car, parked it, and shut it off, or went around the block a couple hundred times at 99,000 miles per hour. We are following a Ferrari right now. If you are in the market for a Ferrari, I'd still take the Corvette. It'll save you about $200,000. It looks just as good. It drives just as good. It sounds just as good. It does come with a better warranty than the Ferrari. It's cheaper to maintain than a Ferrari. It is easier for you personally to work on than a Ferrari. Parts are cheaper than a Ferrari. I would just take this over a Ferrari. Sorry, Ferrari. I mean, I know you're the ultimate brand in the world. Not going to hit you for that. But still, I like this. This is like, it's not even every man's supercar. It's not a poor man's Ferrari. It's not. For $72,000, it's not cheap. But you get everything you want for every single penny that you put into it. It's impressive. I couldn't drive a city block without 10 people yelling something, asking me a question, or just their mouths agape, staring at it.
That's 3 Gs. Yeah, I feel it.
Now, I do have complaints about this car. Don't get me wrong, I'm not going to just say it's the best thing ever since sliced bread, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Absolutely not. Let's get into some of the negative things. It's low to the ground. It's kind of annoying to get in and out of it. Could be a good thing, because you never want to get out of the car, and you just want to drive it forever. But eventually you need to get out of the car. The other thing is, I love convertibles. After having driven this car, I would not own one. I just don't like the lack of trunk space. There's hardly a trunk. You could fit maybe 2 duffel bags and a suit bag underneath where the top drops into. That's with every convertible though. You will always sacrifice trunk space for the drop top. The windscreen's a little bit low, my head's hanging out of it, that's why I'm wearing a hat, because my hair would look utterly ridiculous right now, and I'm just enough self-conscious to wear a hat. By the way, Sour Patronus, old school, thank you very much. Opening the doors using electronic buttons. I like the concept. However, the execution seems a little bit weird. For the driver, it's down left. On the passenger side, it's in the handle that the driver doesn't have on the right. Those buttons don't work until you hit the unlock button. There's an emergency release lever on the bottom to force the door open, just in case the button stops working or the battery's dead or whatever. But I don't know. I kind of like the mechanical thing a little bit more. It's one less thing to break, or one less thing less likely to break. One thing about the design. The car looks beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Except for one thing that I just seem to be mildly bothered by, and that's the side mirrors. They look like just like a fist with a mirror in it. I was hoping for something a little more angular, a little more aggressive looking. The visibility's fine. It just, I don't know, from the driver's seat, it doesn't feel like it matches the rest of the car. From the outside, it looks fine. I could be wrong, but just a personal thing, has nothing to do with anything beyond my tastes. If you disagree, totally fine. So during my time with the Corvette, I had the opportunity to drive up to Alan Wiltig's private track on his farm. I let Alan take a ride out in the Vette, and as he was ripping it around the turns, he had no problem musing, and I quote, "This car is the McLaren 650S of America." It was truly a joy to see someone who understands cars on a really technical level, being a race car driver himself, that he approved of what GM has accomplished. And I think that hits the nail on the head of what GM wanted to accomplish. So I know it's a little bit brazen for him to say that a Corvette is equivalent to a McLaren, but let's look at some numbers. It's 57% tighter than the C6, and it's more rigid than the MP4-12C Spider from McLaren. That says a lot. GM actually conceived the car as a convertible first. So you're probably sitting there wondering, how could a convertible handle so well? Usually convertibles are, chopped roofs and they become a little more flimsy because the rigidity isn't there. Not in this case. GM said, let's build a convertible first and make it as rigid as possible. The Targa roof on the coupe and the roll bars actually don't provide any structural support to the car. They're just there for A, safety, and B, covering your head when it rains. So the only loss you get with the convertible is trunk space, which is kind of an issue if you plan on going on a long trip and pack suitcases, because they better be small. This is a beautiful piece of American engineering. It's fast, it's loud, it's in charge, it has the luxury, the performance. Yeah, you know what? It's not a Ferrari, but you know what? I take it over a Ferrari. Sorry, Ferrari. I know you have exclusivity. You have the engineering technology as well, but this car you can live with every day. I want to thank Alan Wiltig for letting me, drive the car at his track, and thanks for watching FL Detours. Until next time, I'm Tom Albright.
Take your pitch, watch me switch it and never land. That ball will never land. I got a ready plan. There's no ifs, ands, or buts.